He was just a small-town single dad, surviving paycheck to paycheck and tucking his son in with bedtime stories under a leaking roof. But when he opened the shed door and saw a woman shivering in the frost with nothing but fear in her eyes and bruises on her wrist, he didn't ask questions. He simply said, "You're safe here." He had no idea that one act of kindness would flip his entire life upside down. And when he woke up the next morning, his backyard was no longer empty, but lined with 10 rolls Royce and men in black suits. The wind slammed against the windows like angry fists. Rain roared on the tin roof of the small wooden house, and thunder cracked so loud it woke 6-year-old Caleb from his sleep. "Dad," Caleb whispered from his bedroom doorway, clutching his stuffed bear. Zachary Miles, Zach to most people, looked up from the kitchen sink, where he was washing their 2 dinner plates by hand because the dishwasher had died months ago. "Yeah, buddy." Zach wiped his hands on his jeans and crouched down. "I heard something outside," Caleb said, eyes wide. Zach ruffled his son's hair. "It's just the wind playing tricks, kiddo. Go tuck back in. I'll check it out, all right?" Caleb hesitated, then nodded and shuffled back to bed, his little feet leaving damp prints on the old hardwood floor. Zach grabbed the flashlight and stepped into his boots. The storm had already swallowed the night, lightning carving wild shapes in the sky. He clicked on the beam and headed toward the old shed, mostly to ease Caleb's fear, not expecting anything more than a knocked-over rake or a loose plank. But as he reached for the rusted latch, he froze. Something was breathing behind that door. Carefully, Zach opened it. There, curled up in the corner of the shed like a trembling animal, was a woman. Her clothes were soaked through, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her hair was matted, her shoes missing, and her cheeks were scraped. She looked up, startled, blinking hard against the flashlight. "Please," she rasped. "I'm not here to steal. I just needed a place, just for the night." Zach's instincts kicked in. He could see fear in her eyes, but also something deeper. Not just someone lost in a storm, someone running from something real. He didn't ask. He didn't interrogate, and he didn't call the cops. Instead, he held out his hand. "Let's get you inside. You're freezing." She hesitated. "You're not scared?" He shook his head. "Lady, this place barely has a working heater, and the walls creak like they're haunted. I'm more scared of my mortgage than you." A shaky smile touched her lips, and then, with effort, she stood and took his hand. Zach handed her one of his flannel shirts, big enough to be a blanket on her small frame, and a pair of sweatpants that had once belonged to his ex's cousin, left behind during the divorce storm 3 years ago. The woman changed in the bathroom, while Zach made a cup of instant hot cocoa and tossed 2 extra blankets into the dryer to warm them. Caleb peeked out from behind the hallway door, whispering, "Dad, is someone here?" Zach knelt beside him. "Yeah, just someone who needed help tonight. She's cold and scared." Caleb looked down the hall. "Is she nice?" "I think she's been through a lot," Zach said quietly. "So we'll be gentle, all right?" The bathroom door opened. She stepped out, wearing his clothes. Still pale, still quiet, but cleaner now, softer. Her eyes flitted around the kitchen, the cracks in the ceiling, the patched-up chair, and the dented fridge. She looked like she didn't belong in this house, and she knew it. "I didn't mean to scare your boy," she said, her voice raspy but sincere. Zach offered the warm mug. "You didn't. Storm did most of the scaring. Sit down. Drink. You're safe here." She took the mug with trembling fingers and sat slowly, like the wooden chair might bite. Caleb patted in shyly and stood beside Zach. "I'm Caleb," he said. "You can have my bed if you want." The woman blinked, stunned by the offer. Then she smiled faintly, the first real one. "Thank you, Caleb. Elena." Zach noticed the way her voice caught on her name, like it wasn't her real one, or like saying it hurt. "Bad night?" Zach asked gently. Her hands tightened around the mug. "Bad month." She didn't say more, and he didn't push. Instead, he nodded toward the small guest room. "You can sleep in there. Door locks from inside. I'll leave the hall light on." Her eyes flickered with cautious gratitude. "I won't stay long. Just tonight. I promise." Zach crossed his arms. "You can stay as long as you need. No pressure. No questions." Her lip trembled at that, and for a moment, she looked like she might cry. But she swallowed it back and disappeared into the room without another word. That night, Zach stayed up late, staring out the window, his gut tangled. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she was running from. But something told him, whatever it wasn't far behind. The next morning, Zach woke to the smell of something burning. He stumbled out of bed, barefoot, half blind, and found the toaster spewing smoke. Elena stood by the counter, swatting it with a dish towel and laughing nervously. "I was trying to make breakfast," she said, eyes wide. "Turns out, I suck at toast." Zach chuckled. "That thing hasn't worked right since 2017. You want real breakfast, it's gotta be skillet eggs and instant grits." Kayla ran in behind him, eyes bright. "She made hot chocolate again. It's better than yours." Zach raised a brow. "Well, now I'm offended." Elena smiled, really smiled this time. But just as the moment settled into something warm, safe, human, someone banged on the front door. 3 hard, heavy knocks. Zach stiffened. Elena froze. Then her face went white. She whispered, "Don't answer it." Zach moved toward her instinctively. "Who is it?" Her hands trembled again. She looked like she might collapse. "Just don't open it. Please. Please, Zach." He stepped in front of her. His voice dropped low. Protective. "I got you," he said. "You stay here. I'll handle it." He opened the door, and standing there were 2 men in tailored coats, holding umbrellas, with earpieces curled around their ears. Behind them were 10 black rolls Royce lined up across his muddy backyard. And the lead man asked, calmly, "Is Miss Elena Whitley here?" Zach blinked. "What did you just say?" "Miss Whitley," the man repeated, checking a tablet. "We've been searching for her. We represent the Whitley estate. It is urgent." Zach's blood went cold. He turned back to Elena. She was no longer just a shivering woman in his shed. She was somebody, and his entire life was about to flip like a page on fire. Zach's front door hung half open, the cold air slicing into the warmth of the small kitchen as those 2 men, too stiff, too clean, too rich, stood like shadows against the gray morning. Behind them, 10 rolls Royce idled on the gravel, their presence loud in its silence. Zach couldn't move. His heart thudded in his chest, protective instincts tangling with confusion. "Elena Whitley," he repeated. "You must have a wrong house." But she stepped forward anyway. Her bare feet patted softly across the worn wooden floor. Her face had drained of color, but there was a strange calm in her eyes now, like a soldier walking back onto a battlefield she'd barely escaped. "I'm here," Elena said, "but I'm not going back." The 2 men exchanged glances. "Miss Whitley," one began, voice like velvet laced with authority, "your father is hospitalized. Your absence created unnecessary panic across the estate. Your legal counsel has been trying to contact you for days. You left without any security detail." "I left because I was being suffocated." Her voice cut clean through the air. "Don't pretend concern now." Zach's eyes flicked to her. "You said it was just a bad month." She turned to him, pain swimming behind her lashes. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you who I was having a bad month as." One of the men spoke again, his tone clipped. "Miss Whitley, we have orders to escort you back. There's a press storm waiting. Your fiancé has." "He's not my fiancé anymore," she snapped, stepping back. "He's the reason I ran. He's the reason I ended up in that shed with bruises and fear instead of protection." The silence that followed was raw. Zach took a slow step forward, his jaw tight. "She's not leaving with anyone unless she says so." The lead man narrowed his eyes. "Sir, this is far beyond." "Don't care," Zach said flatly. "You want to bring lawyers, do it. But you're not dragging her out of here." Elena's breath caught, not from fear, but from the jarring truth of someone defending her without a price attached. The men looked between them. Then, begrudgingly, the lead nodded. "We'll return this evening with counsel. If Miss Whitley refuses to cooperate, there will be consequences. For both of you." As they left, the cars rolling back one by one, Zach turned to Elena. "What the hell is going on?" he asked softly. She sank into the nearest chair like her bones had turned to water. "I'm the only daughter of Lawrence Whitley," she whispered. "Oil, shipping, tech, you name it, he owns a piece of it. Everything I ever wanted was bought for me. Except freedom." She looked up, and the tears came freely now. "My father arranged my engagement to a man I thought I could trust. But Carter wasn't interested in me. Only the empire. When I confronted him, he hit me, and my father told me to deal with it like an adult. So I packed one bag and ran. I didn't take a card, a phone, or a bodyguard." She laughed bitterly. "I wanted to know who I was without being someone's property." Zach sat across from her, trying to absorb it all. You ended up in a shed in Westbrook, Kentucky, in a stranger's backyard. Because the storm started faster than I expected, and your house was the only one without cameras or motion lights. Zach smirked. I keep meaning to install those. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand. You didn't ask who I was, or what I could offer. You just gave me a place to breathe. Zach met her eyes, steady. Maybe I know how it feels to be invisible. Elena blinked. You? He leaned back. My wife left when Caleb was 2. Said I was too small for her dreams. I work construction, scrape by, come home, make dinner, and do it all over. No one thanks me. No one notices. Until now. For a long time, neither of them said anything. And then, softly, she whispered, I don't want to leave here. Not yet. That afternoon, the town noticed. The newspaper editor parked across the road, binoculars in hand. The mailman nearly rear-ended a truck, gawking at the cars. Even the local sheriff showed up under the pretense of a noise complaint. But Zach didn't care. Inside his home, Elena stood barefoot on the kitchen floor teaching Caleb how to flip pancakes. She looked less like a billionaire's daughter now and more like someone rebuilding, one tiny smile at a time. That night, when the lawyers returned, she had something prepared. I'm not going back to be anyone's pawn, Elena said firmly. You'll tell my father that I'll attend his board meeting, on one condition. He comes here, alone, and talks to me like a human being. No threats, no cameras, no Carter. The lawyer's eyes narrowed. That's absurd. No, Zach said, stepping beside her. That's called respect. The lawyer left fuming. But Elena? She smiled. She wasn't just hiding anymore. She was fighting back. Zach hadn't shaved. He didn't own a suit. His coffee maker sputtered like it was on its last breath, and Caleb was chasing a frog through the kitchen barefoot. But when the Blacktown car pulled into his muddy driveway that Thursday morning, carrying the man who could afford to buy the entire county, Zach simply stood on his porch with a mug in hand and a steel spine. Elena watched from the window, heart pounding. She hadn't seen her father in almost 6 months. The last words he'd said to her were, You don't walk away from this family. We walk away from you. Now he was here, not in his glass office tower, not on a yacht, but on her terms. The car door opened slowly, and Lawrence Whitley, graying hair, a cane he didn't need, and a look that could kill a roomful of CEOs, stepped out and surveyed the peeling paint on Zach's porch with barely hidden contempt. Zach didn't flinch. Morning. Whitley's voice was sharp. Is that your idea of security? Zach sipped his coffee. That's my idea of a welcome. Inside, Elena took a breath so deep it shook her ribs. She opened the door, stepping out barefoot, wearing one of Zach's hoodies over her dress. She looked nothing like the Galleretti socialite her father remembered. You came alone, she said. Lawrence's eyes narrowed. Because you asked me to. I've been many things, Elena, but I'm still your father. You were my jailer, she said. Let's not confuse titles. A long silence hung. The tension between them was electric. Then, softly, Lawrence said, I didn't know Carter hit you. You didn't know, she replied coldly. You just didn't care. I care about the company, he snapped. Your marriage to him was a transaction, she finished. I was the stock, and Carter was the investment. I finally get it. Lawrence's lips pressed thin. You think living in this shack, with this man, is the solution? Zach stepped forward then. Not to fight, but to stand with her. I think she needed space to be herself, he said. And I think you never gave her that. To Zach's surprise, Lawrence didn't argue. Instead, the old man stared at him for a long moment, then looked at his daughter. Tell me why I'm really here, he said. Elena handed him a folder. Inside, boardroom minutes, signed merger contracts, and a list of the Whitley Foundation's offshore accounts. I went to the villa in Nice before I ran, she said calmly. I took what was mine, and I found what you were hiding. If you want me to stay quiet about the whistleblower documents, I want my inheritance now. Liquidated. And my name. Lawrence's eyes darkened. You'd blackmail your own father? I'd expose a man who taught me power meant silence, she said. And I'd do it with peace in my heart. Then she added, softer, or you can let me go. Give me what's rightfully mine, and I'll disappear quietly, live my life, and never tarnish your name. Lawrence glanced at Zach again. His voice dropped. This is his doing, isn't it? No, Elena said. This is your undoing. That night, the town car pulled away in silence. And in Zach's living room, Elena sat curled up on the couch beside Caleb, who was asleep on her shoulder with a pancake syrup stain on his shirt. Zach walked in slowly, 2 mugs of tea in hand. "How do you feel?" he asked. She looked at him, tears in her eyes, but not from sadness. "Free," she whispered. He nodded. "Good. You deserve that." Then, hesitantly, she reached for his hand. "You know," she said, "he'll transfer the funds. He'll save face. But he won't forget." "I know," Zach said. "And I don't care. I might have to disappear again," she warned. "Not to hide. Just to live. Start fresh." Zach looked down at her hand, wrapped around his. "You're welcome here. Always. You and your 10 cars. Just maybe park them somewhere else." She laughed. And in that moment, under the flickering ceiling light, everything unspoken between them finally settled. Not rushed. Not romanticized. Just 2 broken people quietly mending. 1 week later, the town was buzzing. Not just about the Whitley Trust Fund being cashed out, or the media vans spotted outside town limits, but about the backyard wedding planned at Zach Miles' house. 10 Rolls Royce parked cleanly at the edge of the lawn. Simple white lights strung between trees. Elena in a sundress. Caleb throwing rose petals. And Zach in a suit that barely fit, smiling like he'd finally remembered what hope felt like. He didn't marry her that day, but he stood beside her, hand in hand, as she looked her father in the eye and said, "This is the first day of my life, and you don't control it anymore." Lawrence nodded once. Nothing more. Then he walked away. And Elena? She turned toward the man who gave her warmth when she was frozen, safety when she was hunted, and love without price. "You saved me," she whispered. Zach smiled. "Nah, you just found your way home." A month later, life had settled. Mostly. The Rolls Royce were gone. The media had moved on. And Zach was back to waking up at 6 a.m., packing Caleb's lunch, and fixing pipes around town. The only thing different? Elena wasn't there. She had left quietly one morning. No dramatic goodbye. No promises she couldn't keep. Just a short note on the kitchen table. "Thank you for showing me who I really am. I have something I need to do, but I'll never forget this place. Or you." Zach didn't chase her. He respected her choice. But yeah, it stung. Still, life had to go on. Until one morning, a letter arrived. It wasn't from Elena. It was from a lawyer. Zach stood on the porch holding the envelope, the sunlight hitting the bold, embossed stamp. Whitley Legacy Initiative, Private Trust Division. He opened it. Inside was a single-page deed. Ownership transfer of a 10-acre property, fully renovated, titled in his name, along with a handwritten note clipped to the bottom. "For the man who never once asked what I had, only who I was. Build something real here. Teach your son that kindness is always worth it. Elena." Zach stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. 10 acres. A clean slate. A fresh start. That night, he drove Caleb out to the edge of town, to a quiet green field where a wooden gate now bore a small bronze sign. Caleb's place, a home for the lost. Zach didn't cry, but he stood there with his son's hand in his and whispered, "She never left, buddy. She just found a way to stay." And somewhere far away, in a crowded airport terminal, Elena smiled as she watched the sun rise through glass. Because she hadn't just found safety in a storm. She'd found purpose, and she'd left it right where she'd healed.